What if I told you that the constant craving for stimulation silently shapes your life more than your conscious choices ever could? Think about it. How often do you reach for your phone without even realizing it? How many times a day do you scroll, not because you want to, but because your brain demands another hit of dopamine? We live in a world where attention has become currency, and every app, every notification, and content is designed to hijack your biology. And so, the question arises, is there really a way to break free? This is where the idea of a dopamine detox has exploded into the conversation of modern psychology and self-improvement. But does it actually work, or is it just another buzzword for people desperate to reclaim their focus? The term dopamine detox sounds almost magical, as if you could press a reset button, empty your mind of overstimulation, and suddenly live with monk-like clarity. But the truth is more complex. Dopamine isn't the villain here. It's the neurotransmitter that motivates you, that drives you toward action, that gives meaning to reward. Without it, you wouldn't feel motivated to eat, to work, to create, or to connect with others. The problem isn't dopamine itself, but the endless flood of cheap dopamine triggers that leave you numb, restless, and dissatisfied. When everything is designed to give you instant pleasure, real satisfaction starts to fade away. So what actually happens when people talk about a dopamine detox? Many imagine a complete reset. No phone, no social media, no Netflix, no sugar, no video games, no endless browsing. The idea is to strip away overstimulation and give your brain a chance to recalibrate. On paper, it sounds perfect. In reality, it's almost impossible to completely escape the modern world. And that's where most people fail. They try to go cold turkey, cutting out everything, and within hours, they're back scrolling through Instagram, drowning in guilt, and convinced they have no self-control. But this failure isn't proof that dopamine detoxing is a myth. It's proof that most people are approaching it the wrong way. Here's the key. The goal isn't to eliminate dopamine. The goal is to reclaim control over how it's released. Imagine your brain as a balance. On one side, the cheap, quick dopamine hits, notifications, junk food, clickbait, endless entertainment. On the other side, the deeper, more meaningful dopamine, creating something, learning, exercising, building relationships, pursuing long-term goals. Most people's balance is broken. It's tipped completely toward the cheap side. That's why life feels empty, anxious, and scattered. A dopamine detox is really about tipping the balance back toward the meaningful side. Think about it. When was the last time you read a book for an hour without checking your phone? When was the last time you sat in silence, with no music, no videos, no background noise, and just let your thoughts unfold? For many, the answer is never. And this is where the discomfort begins. The first hours of a detox feel unbearable because you're suddenly forced to confront the silence you've been avoiding. Your brain craves stimulation like an addict craves their drug. But if you can sit with that discomfort, if you can let your nervous system calm down, something fascinating happens. Your focus sharpens. Your thoughts become clearer. You start to notice subtle details again. And slowly, real life begins to feel rewarding. But let's be honest. Not everyone can drop everything for a full day of silence and meditation. That's why the real, sustainable approach isn't about completely cutting off dopamine, but about designing intentional practices that reduce overstimulation. Instead of endlessly scrolling, you replace it with reading or journaling. Instead of drowning in background noise, you allow yourself moments of stillness. Instead of chasing instant rewards, you commit to habits that bring delayed gratification. Over time, this shift retrains your brain. It learns to find pleasure not only in cheap hits, but in meaningful effort. Modern psychology suggests that the biggest danger isn't overstimulation itself, but the loss of agency. When your habits are automated, when your hand reaches for your phone before you even think, you've surrendered your control. The power of a dopamine detox lies in breaking this unconscious loop. It's not about being perfect. It's about pausing long enough to remember that you are the one choosing. That pause, those few seconds of awareness, can change everything. Because in that pause, you realize you don't need to check your phone. You don't need to scroll. You don't need to run from silence. You can choose something else. And here's the surprising truth. The people who report the biggest breakthroughs from dopamine detoxes aren't the ones who cut everything off for a week. They're the ones who learn to integrate micro-detoxes into their daily lives. 5 minutes of silence in the morning. A walk without headphones. Eating a meal without distractions. Reading instead of scrolling before bed. These small moments compound, and suddenly the balance begins to shift. Life feels richer because your brain has space to appreciate it again. But here's the truth you won't hear in the quick fix advice videos. Dopamine is not your enemy. It is a vital neurotransmitter that keeps you motivated to survive, learn, and grow. The problem is not dopamine itself, but how modern life hijacks it. Every ping, every swipe, every scroll is designed to keep you hooked, to keep that reward system firing endlessly without any real fulfillment. So instead of chasing a mythical dopamine detox, the real solution is to reclaim control of your attention and reshape your habits. Let's start with the myth. The internet loves to promote the idea that you can reset your brain with a dopamine detox by cutting out all stimulation for a day or a week. People imagine that sitting in an empty room, doing nothing, will magically rewire their minds. But that's not how neurochemistry works. Dopamine doesn't build up like toxins in your blood that you can flush out. It is constantly produced, used, and recycled. The real reset doesn't happen by avoiding dopamine. It happens by breaking the compulsive cycles that make you dependent on cheap dopamine spikes. So what actually works? The first step is awareness. Ask yourself, which habits in your life are driven by compulsive urges rather than conscious choice? Is it scrolling endlessly before bed? Checking your phone the moment you wake up? Snacking when you're not even hungry? These are not bad because they give you dopamine. They are bad because they rob you of control, leaving you reactive instead of intentional. Once you identify the loops, the next step is substitution. Willpower alone doesn't work for long. If you try to simply stop, the craving will usually drag you back. But if you replace the habit with something else that still provides a sense of reward, the brain adapts. Instead of scrolling your phone first thing in the morning, you might stretch, journal, or go for a short walk. Instead of snacking out of boredom, you might drink water or practice deep breathing. The key is not deprivation, but redirection. Now, let's go deeper. Why do you reach for these quick hits of stimulation in the first place? Often, it's to escape discomfort. Maybe you're anxious, bored, or feeling uncertain about your life. The phone, the food, the video, all of it is a distraction from facing yourself. This is the real heart of the problem. And this is where the real work begins. Because the only way to stop being a slave to cheap dopamine is to build a life that doesn't need constant escape. One powerful strategy is to reintroduce friction. Modern technology removes all obstacles between you and gratification. One tap, and the reward is there. But the brain is designed to value rewards that require effort. When you remove friction, life becomes shallow. So start adding it back. Delete the apps that consume you. Keep your phone in another room while you sleep. Make your environment support your best self, not your worst impulses. Another key is delayed gratification. Instead of instantly rewarding yourself, practice waiting. When you feel the urge to check your phone, wait 5 minutes. When you want a snack, wait 10. This small pause reteaches your brain that you, not the craving, are in control. Over time, those small victories accumulate into immense strength. And then comes the most transformative step. Create high-value dopamine experiences. Instead of spending hours chasing shallow stimulation, invest your energy in things that challenge and fulfill you. Exercise. Learn a skill. Build a project. Connect deeply with another person. These are the activities that generate sustainable satisfaction. They don't just spike dopamine. They also release other neurochemicals like serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins, which create a balanced state of well-being. But here's the paradox. At first, these high-value activities feel harder than the easy distractions. Going for a run is harder than opening TikTok. Reading a book is harder than scrolling through Twitter. But the difficulty is what makes the reward meaningful. The pain of effort transforms into the joy of progress. And this is what modern life has stolen from us: the discipline to endure effort long enough to experience true reward. So, what actually works instead of a dopamine detox? It is not about escaping life, but re-engaging with it. It is about reclaiming your power of choice. It is about replacing shallow pleasures with meaningful ones, delaying gratification, and designing an environment where your best habits flourish naturally. Ask yourself, do you want to keep living in a cycle of compulsive stimulation, or do you want to build a life where you are untouchable by cheap cravings? Because here's the secret: when you stop being controlled by dopamine, you don't lose pleasure. You gain freedom. You gain clarity. You gain the ability to direct your energy toward the things that actually matter. And maybe the most important lesson of all is this: you don't need to wait for motivation to act. Motivation is unreliable. What you need is discipline, structure, and consistency. Dopamine is not your enemy. It becomes your ally when you train it with intention. Every time you resist a cheap distraction and choose a meaningful action, you are rewiring your brain toward resilience and strength. So let me leave you with this question: what is one small habit you can change today to stop being a slave to cheap dopamine and start reclaiming your freedom? Share it in the comments. I'd love to know your perspective. And remember, your mind is the most powerful tool you'll ever own. Protect it, train it, and use it to create the life you truly want. If this video inspired you, don't forget to like it and subscribe for more insights on psychology and mental strength. Your future self will thank you.